Thanks for listening in. Before we get going today, I'd just like to thank Kenda Tire, the official tire of the Terribles. We love these guys, love their tires. If you ever get a chance to go out and go to like an Overland Expo West or Overland Expo East, the Kenda folks are usually out at those big kind of consumer community shows. And so go check out their booth. Super fun people. If you get a chance to talk to Michael, he's one of their sales reps. Super good guy. Fun to talk to. Make fun of him for his mustache. And check out their tires, though. They're super good. And my recommendation is the Kenda Cleaver RT. Great tire in between a mud terrain and all-terrain. One of the best out there. We love it. And I'm really excited this year. They're going to launch a brand new design, all-terrain. And they go through a really stringent set of tests and evaluations and all that kind of stuff. And we're happy to be one of those companies that does that gets to put their new tires to the test. So we stand behind them. Go check them out. Super good. All right, welcome to the New Legend Podcast. As usual, we are here to explore, celebrate, vintage 4x4s, adventure, family culture, and being a man of the 21st century. Today, we're going to be diving into another episode on building a brand, and we're here with a good friend, Tom Hill from Iron and Resin. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And as always, here with Luke.
Hello.
So this is really exciting for me. Tom's like a guy that I have a bromance with. Always just love what you're doing, man. Like people we talk about this a lot, but like people that do stuff that are catalyzing community, starting things, taking risks. And you're a dad, you got kids, and I do too. And so Luke is working on it.
So maybe someday.
Take your time. That's my advice.
That's right. Yeah, how old were you when you started having kids?
I had my first daughter. I was 27.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's 21 now.
Nice.
So yeah,
and that's super cool.
Yeah.
I think the neat thing about that, because my son, I had my first when I was 23.
Yeah.
And he's 22 now, and just having like I'm still fit enough to like enjoy things with my kids, and I think that's pretty neat. But first question we always ask, because we are around the automotive culture, is what was your first car of note?
So my great grandmother had when she passed away, I was in high school when she passed away, she had a 67 Chevy Nova.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
Somehow, timing just worked in my favor, and I ended up with that car. I had it for about year and a half, maybe not even that long, before my parents took it away from me.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Was it like a V8 car?
Yeah.
Dude, that's so...
Yeah. It had
was it speeding ticket related, or what?
It had to do with leaving a lot of rubber in front of the house.
So cool.
But it had like 15,000 miles on it.
Man.
She literally was a little old lady who drove it on Sundays to church, and that was it. Sat in her garage. It was like right off the showroom floor.
And a 67 would be like a 283 probably? Or?
I think so. I can't remember now. It was kind of my first... when I was 16 years old, I didn't know that much about cars.
Right.
And it just like that car landed in my lap, and, my dad drove a VW Bug with no guts. And my mom drove I can't remember what she was driving at the time, but, parent cars. And,
right.
And all of a sudden I had this hot rod.
That's so rad.
And, but they took it away from me. So
that stinks. But we, like, of all the people we've asked that question, that's probably the coolest car to date that
I was just thinking one of my first cars was almost a Nova, but it was like a 89, like 4-cylinder, like kind of the last of the Novas.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But that is cool. What did that mean to you to get where'd you grow up?
North Carolina.
Okay. So what did that mean to you to get your license?
When I was, before I was 16, I couldn't wait to get my driver's license. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden I turned 16, and I wasn't really that, I was, the only cars I had to drive were my parents' cars, and I wasn't that excited about driving at that point. And I'm like, so, eventually I think I was probably close to 17 before I actually got my license.
Oh, okay.
And, finally got it. And then, my great grandmother passed away, and then that car kind of landed in our driveway and became sort of the car I got to drive. It was the spare car, right? It wasn't technically my car, but,
got it.
But, and then, I got real excited about driving at that point. So
we just talk a lot about, kind of the rite of passage that, and the freedom that automobiles mean to like young kids, like, and how there's all this talk of like new generations not having to get a license to participate in society, and like just how, like, what would that be for our kids or grandkids or whatever to go, like, they never have that freedom and excitement to go, like, this huge kind of paradigm shift of independence and mobility. And I grew up in the East Coast, and I remember in high school I had a bunch of cars, and I was really fortunate. My dad was kind of a car guy, and he was really cool about me having junk cars. And like, we used to get letters from the city all the time, like, yo, clean up your yard. You got too many junk cars. But just like hopping in the 1970 Buick Skylark and going to Wildwood, New Jersey, with like no plan. It was like, Mom, Dad, I'll be back in a couple days, and like, just, we're gonna sleep on the streets and just whatever. It was just so rad.
Oh yeah, different time though.
I know.
Can you imagine doing that with your kids right now?
No, that's funny.
Yeah.
I know. I was telling another friend, one of my daughter, she's 19, sophomore in college, and she's like in this transition of adulthood, and she's like, Mom, Dad, I'm going to Hawaii this summer for 6 or 7 weeks. I'm just gonna buy a ticket and like figure it out. She didn't ask.
Yeah.
She just like kind of told me, and she's 19. It's like, okay, like, well, let's get our hands, or at least I'll make sure you're being responsible and you're going with friends and you're gonna be safe.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing, man. Like, the shift of like, I wasn't helicopter parented, but like so often people today like just want to keep their kids in a bubble, and I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah, it's just, my kids are all, my oldest daughter's blind. And so, that takes things to a whole new level,
sure, man.
Letting go. She's going away to college next year. She's finishing kind of her 2-year associate's degree, living at home. And then, it's a big step. She's going to move away.
That's huge,
and,
man.
She's all excited. I'm not ready for it yet. But at some point, you gotta let it go and hope that, fortunately, it's a school that's not too far away, so you can get there quickly. But it's still a little nerve-wracking, So.
And you have other kids as well?
Yeah.
And are they local or?
Yeah, my son's at college. He's at Sonoma State, way up in Northern California.
By the way, last time like I talked to you, it was like you were busting up there to help evacuate him, like during the fires, right? Did that go okay?
Yeah. So that was. A lot of that area burned a couple years ago. His first year up in college there, and they had to evacuate. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, and then my youngest is still in high school. She's a junior.
Okay, fun.
So she's looking at school.
Is she driving?
Oh yeah, she has her eyes on. So she got to drive your
I
Waggy
saw some
over
pics,
there.
man.
Yeah,
That's so
we did
cool.
a Sunday breakfast and took that out
glad.
for the day. And she has the old car bug just like I do.
Man. Cool.
And, so she's trying to. I have this old '93. First gen Cummins that is just like our kind of ranch truck that we use. And she's like, Dad, can I have the truck for the summer? And,
that's so rad.
So she loves the old cars too.
That's cool. So what do you think, I just kind of asked this because I'm fascinated, like really this is like a burning question, something I think about at night is, what do you think is going to be the future of driving?
I think we're already starting to see the shift, and I've been watching it, I think, closer to a lot of people because of my oldest daughter, but autonomous driving systems. And that's, up until that technology started developing, she would never be able to drive independently anywhere.
Think about that.
And that's something we haven't really gotten into.
No.
Because for us, it's always like that sort of takes away from the enjoyment, but that opens up a ton of freedom and availability for her.
Yeah. So she already... around here, we don't have, obviously, we don't have anything like that that's happening right now, but it's not too far off. I mean, maybe within 5 years or something, we'll start to see some stuff around here. But But she already uses technology like Uber and Lyft and has been using that for years to be independent. And then, to be able to just use her phone and dial up a car, have it out waiting outside her front door,
which is rad.
Will be a game changer for her. So, it's not for everybody. It's certainly not for me or a lot of people who enjoy driving and kind of experiencing, I love road trips. Like I love just getting on the road with no destination, and, that like with those types of autonomous driving, or self-driving cars, it sort of takes that element away.
Yeah.
So it's happening, it's going to happen. It's, I think it'll be more in urban areas.
Yes.
And
for sure.
Probably places I won't ever be living. So
Right. And like one of the dudes we were talking to, I don't know why I like this, but he's like, he's like, I envision there's gonna be like this subculture, and I just picture like the original hot rod culture, like these renegades, this renegade culture of like, yo, we're driving
just underground,
like,
fixing up cars.
Like this, I don't know, I just love it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna stink. I think it doesn't stink. It's like it's just a change that we got to get our hands around because there's good and there's bad, and like I just hope there's some way to still express that freedom of getting on the road, because there's nothing cooler, man, than just like you said, we love road trips and we do them a lot.
Yeah,
my kids have grown up like traveling the country in old cool cars, like and just that feeling and that experience. I hope future generations will be able to partake in.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got something?
Well, what kind of stuff are you driving now?
Yes.
What's in the fleet?
So I have my daily driver is pretty much a modern Sprinter van. So
that is your daily.
That is.
Okay.
Yeah.
You pulled up in that, and I didn't know if you were just like, guys, check this out.
No,
or if that was like
that's
your
my
grocery
daily,
getter.
Yeah, because it has all the toys in it. So
prepared at any moment.
There's surfboards, kite surfing stuff in there. I usually have a motorcycle in there. I can hit the road. All the essential goods. All our camping gear's in there. So if 5 o'clock today we decide to hit the road, we can just jump in and go.
That's really cool. That's a game changer too. Just having a rig like ready to go. Like you don't have to spend like days. Like
it's a bug out style, but just for everyday activities.
Yeah, and we get stuck places all the time where it's just like, oh, we're having fun. Let's just stay, and we'll just roll in the back of the van and spend the night, and then hit the road early in the morning and come home or whatever. So it's just I've always been a truck guy. I got my first van. I had a 2010 Sprinter van that got in a wreck, and that's why I have the newer one that I got. But that was a game changer for me. I had an old VW Westfalia for a long time when I was in college, and that thing went everywhere, all over Baja, all over the Western U.S.
Pretty cool.
And that I loved having, just wasn't dependable.
Right.
And
it's so limited with like how much you could haul.
Yeah.
Like, right.
And then, I've always had pickups, and there's just a ton of utility there for how I use them. But the van was a life changer. 3 little kids. We traveled a ton. You just pile them in the back. I had a rooftop tent on the roof, so the kids had this, kind of penthouse up there that was just,
that's cool.
They loved sleeping in, and we could go on the road for a month and take, surfboards, paddleboards, motorcycle, mountain bikes, and just, disappear.
That's awesome.
So, and it fit the whole family. So that was a game changer.
So quick question about the Sprinter, because I've been doing some research into something that my wife and I are looking into, and those of you that are listening that have thought about it. So you hear about like the difficulty in driving you had a 144 inch wheelbase, and these are like Mercedes form factors, but then now you have a 170. Is it harder to drive, harder to park, or you think it's a net gain?
It's definitely a net gain. I waffled on it for like a year. I was stressing over it. The 170, 144, 170, 144. And then, man, I'm so happy I got the 170.
Okay, that's good advice.
It's you could just fit so much more in there, and you don't even notice the length.
Yeah.
It's not even a factor.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because you hear this, like, and it's hard, like, I'm happy to talk to you about it, because, like, so much online, it's like, no, the 170, you can't park. You, like, take 6 lanes to do a U-turn, like, or just, you can't park in restaurants, but you pulled in here fine.
Oh, yeah. No problem.
So
I park, I can park it anywhere. Anywhere I could park, it's the same length as a crew cab long bed.
Yeah, okay.
Dude,
no problem.
Yeah.
And what else? You got something else you're stewing up? I know.
Oh yeah, I got a sort of the recent acquisition is a 62 Dodge Power Wagon crew cab.
Oh man,
So sweet.
Yeah.
that's like a dream rig. Like,
Yeah.
because they're so hard to find.
Oh, yeah.
You were saying like they only made it like a few hundred.
Yeah. So you can, of that body style in that year, I think they made around 300 and something.
Man.
So they're just, they're hard to come by. And I'd been looking for years, and this guy had this thing sitting in his, in his barn, and just, he had a whole bunch of old trucks. And
Yeah, it's awesome. And you said 318,
318 poly,
3-speed or 4-speed
4-speed.
on the floor.
Yeah.
Even that's just cool, man. A 62, and you were saying it has power steering.
Has power steering, which
That's crazy.
Which again was an option in those years. Why anyone would opt not to have it,
Right,
doesn't make
especially
sense
with a
to me.
big rig like that.
Yeah, because the tires are, it's got those big unidirectional sort of tractor tires,
Yeah,
the military
right.
ones on there, and just tough to turn without
That's
power
cool.
steering.
Because Dodge, like, I don't know, it seems like Ford and Chevy are like were the bigger brands of trucks back then.
Yeah,
But Dodge had some really, I mean, in my opinion, some of the best look. That particular, their crew cabs are the best, like looking,
Yeah.
coolest trucks, in my opinion.
we don't see. Number one, you never saw a lot of factory 4x4 trucks.
Yeah.
Out of any brand really, because they're rare. Dodge, all those Dodge trucks. I mean, I've always been kind of a Mopar guy.
Yeah,
but,
love it.
All the Dodge trucks, they're super commercial, military, Forest Service, fire service. They're all put to heavy duty commercial
use,
work.
yep.
Yeah.
That's what makes them even more rare to survive. Is like it's sure low miles, but a lot of them had like, I mean, the airport vehicle. We see Scouts like that. They're like
Usually
Yeah.
pretty heavily used, that kind
Yeah.
of type of vehicle, because it was built for like being rugged and
Yeah.
being used. So
Yeah.
Well, cool. So
Pretty
thank
thrashed.
you for sharing that. Let's dig into kind of a little more about who you are. There's 3 things I really want to talk about. Number one, just about like building your brand, like the story of Iron and Resin. And I know we can't go super in depth, but just a little bit. Then the role that adventure plays in your life. Because like one of the conversations we had with someone that was interesting is like, sure, like I loved getting my family on adventures. Like, and there's something very bonding and strong about that. But it's also important, and my wife has been so great about it, but about just getting out with the dudes and going on like an adventure that's a little more gritty, a little more, I don't know, there's
Yeah.
something special about that that's refreshing to the soul of a guy in a different way. So talk about that. And then, can't remember the third thing, but it'll come to me.
Okay.
So let's dig into like kind of your little story about the brand. Why did you, what was the vision? How did you start it? Kind of some of that.
Yeah, it really started as just sort of a little passion project for me. I've been doing branding for other brands for a long time before I started Iron and Resin, and still do a little bit. But we would do a lot of stuff, mostly in the surf industry, a little bit in the ski and snow industry. But I was really always fascinated by things that had a little broader scope, and I felt like growing up around a lot of action sports, I had matured sort of well beyond those brands. And when you sort of looked at the landscape of what was out there, there just wasn't much, for a guy that was a little bit older, had a family, still loved to do all those things, but didn't want to be defined as a surfer or a motorcyclist or, and then all the brands that sort of were available in those, in those categories they're just super, it was like surf or moto or super techie, outdoorsy.
Right.
And none of those things were me really. And so like, Iron and Resin at its core is really an outdoor brand, and it's kind of our version of outdoor lifestyle and all the things we love to do.
I mean, I just appreciate that approach, man, because you're right. It's like, it's so like, I don't know what it is, but like that, like the people that dress like they're going to go hiking, but they're not really hiking.
Yeah.
It's just it's so defined. Whereas like just building rugged, cool clothes that can just get you outside. And I don't know, I love that.
Yeah. And I've always loved vintage. I'm inspired by a lot of vintage stuff, whether it's cars, motorcycles, surf culture, all the above. I love vintage clothing, and I love the aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's not functional for how we dress today.
Yep.
So it's sort of, I wanted to take a lot of that inspiration and turn that into something that fit, the aesthetic we liked, but modern upgrades in terms of like tailoring and fits and stuff like that, and have the same rugged functionality and the durability, but a little more modern, kind of contemporary, but have it still function and serve a purpose. Build things that are kind of purpose built, but just not be overly technical with a bunch of gratuitous detail that you really, guys like us don't necessarily need.
Right.
We need stuff that's waterproof or wind resistant, but it doesn't have to be like some crazy, technical fabric or, there's stuff that functions great that, aesthetically looks awesome, whether you're, riding your bike across country or just, going to grab a beer with your friends or whatever.
This is what's nuts. Like, you guys see, like, I have so much respect for like early mountaineers. Like, you look at like, oh man, just the stuff they were doing, and it actually, like, it is rudimentary for sure, but like wools and camp, like some of that stuff was actually, I think, it's pretty good to today's day. I mean, there's obviously a ton of technology.
But it's just really pure materials and like fit and finish.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'll be the first to admit, like, I'm not going to put on a wool sweater and go out and surf, I'm going to put on a modern wetsuit, and, but there's a time and place for that stuff. And I don't, like, in my everyday life, like, I just like the stuff that's timeless. It's not built around fashion or, it has a timeless aesthetic that, it's going to be relevant in your closet 20 years from now.
Yeah.
I grew up, like, I would steal my grandfather's Pendletons, it's the same shirt today that it was 40 years ago. And
yeah, that's funny, man. Cause my dad, he was like he worked at Bridgeport Machines for like 30 years making those mills, like Bridgeport Mills, which is really cool. Because those are an iconic piece of kind of American machining and automotive culture. But he was also like, never made much money. And we grew up like, I don't know. I think his like highest salary he ever made was like 38 grand.
Yeah.
But we had a good life. He was a good dude. But when he passed away, like we go through his closet and it's just like, I was a little like, come on, Dad. Like, he left some good tools and stuff like that. But in his clothing, it was just like, all just cheap stuff of the day.
Yeah.
And that inspired me to go like, man, someday when I pass away, I want my kids to be like, yeah, this was Dad's jacket. Like, I want to, this thing's rad.
There's a difference with like leather jacket, like a legacy jacket. That's like,
just heritage quality stuff. Yeah. Like, that's less, you buy less of it, but it lasts.
That's it. I mean, there's something to be said about, and, we it's a big part of our whole brand ethos is, buying fewer things and making them last a long time.
Yeah.
If you have quality things that are timeless in terms of style, I don't care if it's a car or a jacket or, piece of gear, kit or whatever, that something, just something you hang on your wall or have in your house. It's like, I like surrounding myself with stuff that has meaning to me, personal meaning. There's a whole world out there, stuff that's just like meaningless. People buy it because they see it in a catalog and it looks cool or whatever. But, you got to surround yourself with stuff that has some sort of meaning to your life, and I've, I made a shift in my life. I remember being conscious of that at a pretty young age. I remember when my grandfather was passing away towards the end of his life, he was well into his 90s. He was 97 when he died. So you think about almost living 100 years, and the stuff, it's easy to accumulate stuff, right?
For sure.
And but you look at what he surrounded himself with at the end of his life, and every single thing had some meaning.
That's
cool,
man. That's good.
And that was like I spent a lot of hours in that room, and that had a pretty profound impact on me and sort of how I approached, consumption. It's like, because there's just consumption. It doesn't bring you joy. It doesn't do anything. Maybe for a split second you get a little something out of it, but then it's just like another object doesn't mean anything to you, you know? But if you have something that, you know, has whether it's sentimental value or something that is just something you love and you use every day, and it's part of who you are, that's the kind of stuff, you know, it's cool to hang on to, and, you know, to have stuff that you feel is like sort of legacy worthy, or you can pass it on is cool. So,
and I have this theory too, like, because I experienced it. Like, there's something I feel when I put on a jacket that I know was made like responsibly from quality stuff. Like, I know it was sewn by like locally, and like to me, that's just really important. And I go like, I have more pride. I don't know what it is, what the word is, but it just feels good to know where your clothes is, like particularly your clothes, but other items, like whether it's an axe, sure you can. And sometimes you just have to get what you can afford. I get that.
Yeah.
But if you go, you know, I'm going to save because I want to buy like a hand forged axe that has a story, and I can read about the guy who made it, and I can pass it on to my kids, and then they don't have to buy one.
Yeah. Well, there's, you know, so there's like, I feel that there's a lot of value in that stuff. And, you know, if something's made by hand by a small maker who sits down at a workbench every day and makes something, you know, one at a time, there's a lot of love that goes into those things rather than just on an assembly line. Those things are just sort of mass produced. And there's like I said, you know, sort of the wetsuit example, there's a time and place for that stuff, you know, and
that's a good point. That's funny.
You know, but there's, you know, there's things that have meaning in your life that, I don't know. For me, I just kind of want to surround myself with that stuff.
That's good.
You know.
I remember this story. I think it's in John Krakauer's Into the Wild. Like, he has these little like appendix stories, and there was some dude in Alaska who like rubbed himself with lard.
Oh yeah.
Like, they just coated himself in lard, then put like wool sweaters on. It's just crazy.
Why?
For insulation.
Insulation?
Yeah. So I'm grateful for technology, I guess, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And how good are new wetsuits, dude? They're so nice.
Oh, man. I don't like the cold, so.
Me either.
But
I was like, so I moved to Iowa 11 years ago, and at that time I bought like this brand new O'Neill 4.3 Psycho Zen Zip, whatever.
Yeah.
Because I don't like to be cold. And I was surfing up in Santa Cruz. And so it was a 4.3. And then 11 years go by, and I started surfing again, and I brought it out. And it's like, dude, this thing is so stiff. And then I bought a modern, like 10 years of innovation, just a 3.2, and it's warmer and so flexible. So how does that, because you do take heritage kind of inspiration, that legacy kind of design, but how do you guys work hard to infuse modern techniques and just different things into that story?
Yeah, not so much, you know, in terms of material. I mean, we're always looking for kind of, you know, that sort of heritage aesthetic.
Yep.
You know, whether it's workwear or military inspired or Western or whatever, you know, we get a lot of inspiration from, you know, from all over, but it's really about sort of taking that functionality that was very functional for how people used it. And it's more of, I would say, the modernization that we do to it is more in fit. Sometimes, you know, we're using some more modern materials in terms of things that are more sustainable, whether it's,
That's,
recycled poly or, you know, organic cotton or hemp or, so, you know, we're always striving to kind of find a balance between, you know, sourcing in a sustainable way that's thoughtful in terms of, you know, our impact and,
that's great.
But at the same time, sort of checking all the boxes in terms of, you know, the aesthetic that we love and the functionality we love. So
that's cool. And if you have the opportunity out there, we'll talk about this more, but talk for just 2 seconds on, like, if you have an opportunity out there to check out, particularly the Ventura, all your stores are cool, but the Ventura store just has this really cool vibe, I think, for us, because it's called the Garage.
Yeah.
And there's like literally a garage door in the front, and we live in a garage basically every day. We're in a shop. So what was the inspiration behind that? I mean, I think I can guess, but just kind of share the vision about that.
Yeah. So, you know, when we always knew, you know, in starting the brand, you know, I knew I wanted a retail space. I wanted like a physical hub where people could come experience the brand.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel it's, you know, things you just can't achieve with just an online presence,
Right.
and or through other retailers, because they're not gonna tell your story, the way
Yeah.
you want it to be told. So we wanted a place where we had total control over that. And, the garage is, for me, everything I love is in my garage.
That's awesome.
It's like, every adventure I go on, every trip I take, everything I love to do starts in the garage. All my gear, motorcycle, surfboards, camping, climbing, everything I have is in my garage. So,
That's cool.
That's where it starts. And so that's kind of your base. And, the idea for this space was to have sort of that similar concept where, the garage could outfit you from head to toe for whatever you're doing, that cross-country motorcycle camping trip, or, surf trip down to Baja, or whatever it is, we'll,
Love it.
it starts in the garage. Yeah.
Then you had to do that though. Like this space didn't have that.
Yeah.
And the city was cool doing that.
Yeah. So, this building I think was built in 1916. And, it's an old brick building, like a lot of the buildings down here. They're just getting ready to do a big earthquake retrofit in here. So those big giant steel members you see around the corner, those are going in here.
Into your store. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. But they'll be exposed, so it'll look really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
But it's an old brick building that the next earthquake it could come tumbling down pretty easily. So they gotta update it. But it has the aesthetic. I love the history of old buildings, and it fits our vibe really well.
Totally.
And you walk in and everything kind of makes sense. So
have you been in there yet, Luke?
I haven't. No.
Yeah, we got to check it out after this.
I saw a bunch
of
a bunch of old bikes in there and that kind of stuff.
It's cool. Surfboards, the surf is close to here, close to the store.
Yeah, surf. The point is just a block that way.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
don't know my directions.
so we're lucky.
To the left.
To the left.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so I remembered my third point.
Okay, that's good.
Another thing I really appreciate about you and Iron and Resin is being a catalyst for community. So talk about some of the intentionality. Like you guys host the Hooligan Hoedown. You just had one. Like was it
October?
Yeah. So wow, time flies, man. Yeah, it's crazy. Are you getting ready Are you doing it again this year?
Yeah, we'll do it again. We'll do it every fall. And we got to get planning on it because it'll sneak up pretty quick.
But you do some cool things like meetups, like for people to ride together at your stores. Even when you had the Venice store, like there was I was there probably 5 or 6 times, and almost every time I went, there was something happening in the back patio, like candle making or just ways to get people together. So talk about the importance of, and the kind of your vision of creating community. Yeah,
I mean, for sort of our DNA is heavily in kind of surf and moto culture, and we sort of use those two things to bring people together. But it's I think especially for retail, you see the emergence of online being really the force for to contend with, and there's a convenience factor there. I mean, your phone is now a vending machine. You can push a button and stuff shows up on your doorstep. Like now, 2 hours later, it's crazy.
Like cars, dude. We saw one of those like glass garages where you just like vending machine a car out. It's like crazy, dude.
Yeah. So there's a convenience factor, but people still need that human connection.
Yeah, for sure,
and so the retail space. And, we're adding kind of a cafe here where we'll have like coffee and homemade pie and just, a big fire pit to gather around and have a place where people can get together and, just hang out, share ideas and shoot the shit and talk and, maybe meet up for a ride or go for surf or whatever it is. And, but just having kind of a communal hub where people can get together has always been sort of our biggest strategy around building the brand. And if you build a strong community, it's you build brand loyalty that way, but you also just ideally create your own customer. I know a lot of our customers come to us and maybe they didn't ride a motorcycle before, maybe they just are learning to surf or whatever, but somehow we may have inspired them to get their first bike or something. And I hear those stories all the time, and it reinforces what we're doing.
Totally, man. That's huge.
Makes us feel really good about what we're doing, and makes us want to keep doing it. So
yeah. That's huge. I think especially if you can inspire, we talk about that a lot on this show. Like if you can inspire someone to get out of their comfort zone and go from you see that's like Instagram, right? So much of it's just aspiration. Like, that would be cool to do that. And like guys like you in places like this could go, hey, we could help resource you to do that, and and help you kind of put it to pavement. Like go
aspiration to action.
Go find a 78 KZ 400 and just like get out on the road and just start ripping around and break down and have some fun memories. And
I mean, one of the things we've talked about doing with the brand, and hopefully we'll get to realize this kind of dream soon, is starting kind of a guided adventure travel
love it.
Part of the brand where people, we take people on these trips where, we provide a lot of the stuff for them, but it's definitely designed to get people outside their comfort zone. We go on trips all the time, and there's always some element of pushing yourself beyond where you're comfortable and stuff you haven't done before. And shit goes sideways all the time. And sometimes it's miserable when you're in the middle of it. And I've had some really rough times on some of these trips, but those are the trips you remember. And you'll never forget those times, and the bonds you've made with the people on those trips, and those experiences are things that you'll take with you. And so we want to kind of provide that level where we're not going to provide all the creature comforts. We're not going to provide, you're not going to have craft cocktails waiting for you at the campsite, but you can be guaranteed that you're going to push yourself beyond anything you've ever done before. And we're going to make that possible. And things may go wrong. You may get hurt. You may break a collarbone. You may get, have to get helicoptered out. Like some things may happen.
I love it, man. I'm being specific here.
The goal is not to get injured and to kind of keep people safe, but it's like, you want to kind of find that line, and where that line is, and kind of walk along that line so that you're looking over the edge a little bit, and you kind of, the consequences, and then getting through that intact is the goal, obviously, but, just getting through it is going to be a memorable experience. And so that's kind of the sort of the concept behind it. But, a lot of people don't have the tools or the gear or the knowledge or whatever to do it on their own. And so they kind of need that little bit of, kind of extra push to kind of get them there. And, we want to provide that. So,
and what a shift in lifestyle. Like our mutual friend, Billy, who, 2.5 years ago when we met him was the first time he ever rode a motorcycle.
Right.
It was like I can't remember the bike, but it was some little enduro bike, and he's like 300 pounds. And he's like 6'7". He's a big dude. So seeing him on this little bike, but it was seeing the joy in his eyes, and the joy in the people around, a lot of them like moto people. Yeah. And now he's a fiend, dude. He rides more than we do. Yeah. And so to see that, and then he's talked so positively about what that's done in his life and his perspective on life, and the way he's raising his kids, and all that's so powerful. Yeah. And so I appreciate that. I think, more and more people, especially in this connected age or something weird, because this is just how people lived 50 years ago. Kind of life was an adventure, because things were just, cars had carburetors and they just broke down all the time. And so, but now everything's so polished, or I guess, or something, that people are insulated. A lot of people, some people live, there's rough environments, but a lot of people are insulated from true adventure.
Well, that's the thing, adventure, unfortunately, is, I think, one of those words that's sort of been, it's overused. I hate the word adventure, or at least how people use it today, because for some people an adventure is going to Coachella, and camping, and they're that's a big adventure for them. And I didn't grow up that way, and I don't want my kids to look at, have that be their definition of adventure. I want them to experience some things where they're challenged, and they've got to figure out how to get home, and it's, I think sort of modern society, especially people who live in more urban areas, like they don't have those experiences,
right?
And they're not tapped into that. But man, once you do, Billy's a great example. Look what it's done, for him and how he's raising his kids. And I think that's, I love to see that.
Me too.
So
I sorry, like for those of you that will listen to like a lot of episodes, but for me, when I moved to California from Connecticut, like Connecticut in the northeast, I think like the highest mountain is like 4,000 feet.
Yeah.
So coming out to California, and we were driving from San Jose, which is beautiful and hilly, and I was near the ocean finally, because I learned to surf on the East Coast, where it's kind of hard to surf. You have to drive. We drove like an hour to Rhode Island, and like, who knows if the surf is good? Likely it wasn't. Yeah. And then it's like a hurricane swell, and it's huge, and you just
North Carolina. Yep.
Yeah. And then you get worked hard. So that was fun, sleeping in like this at Point Judith, Rhode Island. Like there's like this abandoned restaurant. We used to sleep in the parking lot. It was fun. But Northern California, driving to Oregon, and the first time I saw Mount Shasta was like this very strong experience for me. And I'd been around climbing a little bit, like exposed to it a little bit, but just going like, I want to climb that. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm getting into. And then convincing my two buddies to like, let's go do it. And we just were so unprepared.
Yeah.
And it was sketch. It turned out to be a really sketch adventure. And it took us 3 more times to get to the summit finally. But just that kind of adventure to like give men, particularly men, like, but women too, was just something to dream about and something to aspire to. So we seamlessly transitioned into the adventure. So what is like the role of, and again, defining adventure how you would define it, like something like that's really pushing you out of your comfort zone. Luke, have you had, what would be like an experience that you've had like that?
Push me out of my comfort zone?
Yeah.
Well, and again, it's always those ones that are real miserable that you remember.
Like have been some of our road trips?
Yeah, some of our road trips. And then there was this one hike that I was doing down in like Big Bend, Texas, where it was just, we didn't quite have enough food and water. And then it started raining, getting really cold, and we had to hike back. And it was just like, we're borderline in trouble right now.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know, with all those, you sort of realize like, I'm not as fragile as I think I am,
Yeah.
I can, it's miserable, sure, but you can push and you can grow and you're starting to learn things.
So I want to talk about 2 things, and I'm sure you have experience with this. So the importance of that in someone's life. But number 2, because that's not a great sales pitch to get your wife and family coming on adventures with you. But that was a mistake that I made. Like, because for me, absolutely, the more miserable it was, the more memorable it was. And not that I sought after misery, but it was just like, let's make it hard. Let's pick the hardest route. Let's just take not enough food or something stupid.
You do that on purpose?
Yeah.
When I was in my 20s, they had and I started doing this in college back then. I don't know if you remember this, but in the back of Outside Magazine, there was like a little ad they used to run. This is long before the internet, obviously, and you would get these things out of the back of magazines. But there are a couple companies that, one of them you could join. It was a membership-based thing, and you essentially got on this. You had access to this. It's like a freight forwarding company, and they flew freight all over the globe.
Yeah.
And
sounds good already.
Yeah. You essentially, what you do is you could travel for free anywhere in the world. The only caveat was you could only take carry-on. And so you would pay through this membership, you'd pay like a nominal, like be $15 or something. And it was sketchy. I did this like, I don't know, a couple dozen times.
Like, that sounds crazy.
You'd meet some dude in the airport. He would have your ticket. This is obviously well before 9/11.
Right.
And they would use your baggage space for freight. So, and it was for like, so they would send, like, if it was like big oversized packages, they're heavy or whatever, they'd ship things this way. And it had to be expedited. So it was like, you had to be ready to fly within 24 hours notice. And it was always out of a major airport, like, New York or Miami or LAX. So you had to get to that airport in that time frame. But then you could, and I had no money. I didn't have anything, and I would go for like a week, like some country I'd never been to before by myself. I'd have like $50 with my backpack, and you just land and you'd have to figure it out.
Dude, that's really crazy.
I'd sleep on the beach. I'd meet people. They'd put me up in their house. I made like lifelong friends. It was like those experiences.
That is cool, man.
But no plan, no destination other than some random airport in a foreign country where you don't speak the language. And man, talk about adventure. Like I had some of the best
that's crazy.
adventures of my life doing that. But, like today I feel like things are so, you got to plan stuff, right?
Right.
To a certain extent, especially if you have a group of people or a family, you got to have a plan. But, there's something to be said about not having a plan and just going. And, that to me, even if you're just driving across the state with, you're just going to see what you see, that's an adventure,
And that should be at a minimum something that everyone should try. Like, don't hotel it. Get it like a cheap tent or whatever you can afford. Get some basic camping gear and just go like 3 or 4 days. And just
and
see
there's
what
a difference
happens.
between planning and just kind of being prepared for what's going to come.
Yeah, I was prepared. I had I'd have food in my backpack. I had, camp stove and, I could sleep anywhere. I had my sleeping bag and never ended up in jail. Never, never got robbed. I never, but man, there were some times where I'm like, whoa, where am I sleeping tonight? I'm in this big city and I'm like, somehow it always work out.
Well, some of that preparation can just be expectations. Like, I know this is what I'm getting into. And so you're not necessarily surprised, but you're just like, let's do it, man. Let's see
I
how
got to tell
goes.
this story too. So like one of the funniest stories of my life is that Wildwood trip. So me and my buddy hopped in my 7D Skylark, went to Wildwood, and we're like, and one massive oversight, it was that we got down there, like, we'll just sleep in the car. Like the Buick had bench seats, front and rears, like pretty big. And, but everywhere we looked in the whole like area was like no overnight parking. So we're like, man, crud, where are we going to park? And so we're like cruising around. The first night we found this, there's like in New Jersey, like at the time, there'd be like these sketchy little places, like hotel places. And the dude would just be sitting in a lawn chair out in the parking lot. And and it was $10 a night. So we get this room for $10, and it's terrible. Like this ratty old bed and dirty couch, and there's this massive party going on. We get up in the morning, and there's one bathroom for like 10 rooms on this hall. And I go to the bathroom, and I notice there's like no toilet paper, so I just go pee. And then my buddy Jay goes in there. He's like, I gotta go to the bathroom so bad. So he comes out, and he's like, dude, I he's like, that was awful. And I'm like, what did you do? And he has like this look of shame and guilt on his face. And he just points to the ground, and there's like, those like spiral rugs that were in like your grandparents' house? There's one of those crumpled up in the corner. I'm like, oh, dude.
Oh, no.
So humiliating. So some preparation's good. Like maybe we should have brought some toilet paper. But
Yeah.
Okay, so let's transition. I'm sure we could talk stories like this forever.
Yeah.
But so what is maybe some tips and tricks and or philosophies to actually get your wife and kids out on a trip with you?
Yeah. So I went through a lot of, we did, my kids, they were camping from the time they were a few weeks old.
Yeah.
So it was just like,
rad.
we didn't let anything kind of slow our lifestyle down. I'm no longer married to my wife. I've, been happily with a, girlfriend for almost 4 years now, and she's as hardy as they come. So she's up for anything, any kind of adventure. And so our life's awesome in that way. Not so much when you have little kids, and
it's hard, man.
It's limiting where you can go and what you can do. But you also kind of want to push them outside their comfort zones, and expose them to the world at large and travel. And
this is the joys of like sitting by a campfire and like throwing sticks and like looking for rocks. Like I don't know, just the simple little joys of like being a kid outdoors.
I can tell you, from raising 3 kids, that you have to find joy in those moments, because there's a lot of shitty things that you got to deal with a lot of crying, complaining.
Right.
If you have more than a couple kids, or even more than one, you're never going to please all of them at any given time. There's always going to be someone who's complaining. So
and the tension is to just not do it because you don't want to put up with it. But same with me, man. There is a reality. We went through a dry spell of like where we didn't camp because it was just too difficult.
Yeah.
But if you can push through, there's such value. So let me ask you this: so your kids are all getting older. Do they still enjoy like those memories, and or like have they said like, "Hey, I like camping. I'd like to do that."
Yeah,
with my family.
It's interesting, and I remember being sort of this way as a teenager too, because I grew up on outside my whole life, right? And I was lucky in that I had two grandfathers who loved the outdoors as well. So I spend a lot of summers either with one or the other. And, a lot of time on boats. My one grandfather had a sailboat, so I grew up sailing and spent a lot of time on boats. And, I've always had a boat here, even right out of college. We have the Channel Islands right offshore here. So you have this just incredible, beautiful part of California that most people don't get to see that we got to live, and my kids are lucky in that they grew up going, spending time out on the islands and did you
have a sailboat or?
I had a sailboat, and then I had as the kids got, not too long after the kids were born, they didn't, it was tough to take a 5-hour sailing trip across the channel. So traded that in for a powerboat. Okay. And then, so it's it became less about the journey, more about the destination with the kids and getting there. But they were lucky but they hit their teenage years and they didn't want anything to do with it. They're like, Dad, don't make me go on the boat. I don't want to go out of the islands. And you're thinking like, God, I would chop off my left nut right now if somebody offered to take me out there.
Ungrateful.
Yeah, but they're just
they're just kids.
I remember being that way as a teenager.
Yeah, of
like,
course.
I don't want to go on the boat. It's really boring. Nothing to do. My friends aren't there. So I get it. But then I came back to it in a big way, and that had a huge impact, on the rest of my life. So, they'll come back around.
That's right.
They spent their whole lives outside doing stuff like that. And then they hit teenage years and other priorities took over. And, but that, I know that'll have an influence on them. And
that's right.
They'll come back around to it.
That's right. And that'll be fun to see. That's a fun part of parenting, to see the kind of kids that you'll raise or that you've raised. Someone gave me some good parenting advice later in life. And I feel like we've tried to do this anyway, but raise your kids so that you'll like them as adults. Like, and if your kid's like entitled and bratty and just whatever, that's likely maybe the kind of adult they're going to be. So you gotta shape them, man. Help shape your kids into cool people.
Yeah, and that's easier said than done.
No, yeah, for sure, dude. It's because that evolution, and again with tangent here, but like as your kids start to gain their own. They have personalities from when they're born, but like as they begin their own personhood, they start to get self-focused and like they want to do what they want to do, and the more strong-willed they are, the stronger those battles can be. Yeah, and so, but it's fun, super fun. Well, cool, man. Let's 50 minutes has gone by already. This goes by fast. So final question, just kind of what's in the future for you, man? You talked about the cafe thing. Love that idea. What else is in the Tom Hill vision for the future? Yeah,
we're gonna keep pushing as hard as we can with Iron and Resin. The cafe is what we're working on right now, and just to have more of a gathering place for people to even hang out, spend time, sit around the fire, and have a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever.
That's gonna be cool, man.
Yeah, and then I would love to get this sort of travel adventure kind of guide service off the ground and get that going as sort of the more experiential part of the brand, and just kind of give people those experiences and kind of share that with them. And that's next.
That's huge, because it's almost like you've, through whatever, even if it's just all your self-motivation, but just you have all this knowledge, man, of all these trips, I know people like that who have just spent 30 years exploring the West and like California, and so your ability to share that with people is really special. And I think that'd be nothing. There's nothing you can read on the internet all you want. There's nothing like going with someone that's been there before and can help and just kind of help introduce you to places and things.
Yeah, and I think it's more than just that. It's sort of the, the camaraderie that comes out of those trips, because everybody, the whole goal is you start together and you finish together. Because there's going to be people that are more experienced than others. There's always going to be someone that's taking up the rear, but you carry everybody with you,
That's huge.
And the more experienced people carry the less experienced people, and they get a lot out of it, and everybody kind of grows together. It's pretty cool.
I like that.
So,
well, cool. And again, just a quick shout, man. We want to keep places like this, smaller brands like this, like Iron and Resin, man. There's a lot of noise in the apparel and like kind of gear space. So I really hope that New Legend, like that there are people that are interested in what we're doing will come out and support what you're doing. And it's cool. Listen, man, it's if you're driving around in your old Scout, like just kind of having the same ethos and like what you wear and what you're about and what you support is really cool. And there's a consistency that I love about that. So come out. Don't even if you're here, come to Ventura, check them out. When is this space going to be built out with the cafe stuff?
Probably late summer.
So it's going to be insane. Come hang out for a day, go surfing. Oh, share that idea about like the board, like the ability to check out surfboards and.
Yeah. So, we'll have some form of a membership here where if you're a member, you get free coffee, you can check out, we'll have a library of boards that you can check out. If you're just visiting, you need a board, you can, we'll have every kind of shape imaginable. So if, the surf's pumping, you want, a more modern performance board, or you want like a traditional log or a fish or something like that, we'll have everything.
Cool. So, I love that idea. Cause in surfing, it's like so hard because you buy a board, you maybe even have one spec'd out for you and they're pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But it's like trying other boards is like not an easy thing to do. So I love that idea. And Luke, actually, Tom, he went surfing for his first time yesterday.
Nice, Luke.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Got some big air, whatever. I don't know.
He got worked a couple times. It was small, fun. He was just trying to avoid people.
Yeah. Good for you. Awesome.
It's good,
it was
though.
fun.
It's fun.
Because I've taken him wake surfing.
Uh-huh.
And wake surfing is, you do pretty well like behind the boat.
Highly controlled environment.
Yeah, it's such a more static environment, like where you don't have to read the wave. It's just always the same right behind the boat, and you have a rope. And so surfing's fun, man. I encourage people to check that out too. So Tom, thanks for joining us, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. And, thank you.
We'll have to.
And thanks for having us.
Check out. I also appreciate. We've done 2 projects together. The first 72 Scout, one of the coolest trucks we've done, and like in this 78 Wagoneer. So absolutely love working with you guys, and the inspiration that you bring. You've honestly helped. I should note this. You've helped really craft what is like our signature aesthetic, man. So I really am grateful to you for that. And
we love what you guys do.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just so inspired by the builds, and we lust and drool over every truck that comes out of your shop. So it's like, cool, one day I'll have one.
Yeah. And we're talking about so keep an eye on this. We're talking about getting your 62 out to the shop and like doing a collab on the interior and just kind of some things. And so that'll be super fun too. Some wheels and some interior.
Yeah.
But cool, guys. All right. We'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.